So you may be well know about my last episode, previous episode, in which I explained about the skirmishes, and also we have to think of being pro-Indian rather than being anti-Chinese. Why? Because Chinese hardware and software are being such a part in our life. Sorry for the disturbances around. I can't help but I am in a public place, and to be exact, I'm in my travel, so I can't stop those. And at the same time, I promise you, as soon as my reach increases, I'll try to make it in a studio environment. But for now, let us continue with this. And why we must why we must have to embrace a pro India rather than an anti Chinese rhetoric in our demands against or in our protests against the killing of 20 personnel, military personnel in the Galwan Valley face off. So let me now explain why and how. For first thing, for beginners, that China had started this skirmish in the Galwan Valley for first thing, that it must have to stop companies from moving to India. Yeah, China can afford the companies going from its country, but it can't afford the same thing to settle in India. Why? Because there are many reasons for that, and one reason is that India is the only competitor for China to dominate the world. Why? Because America, due to its less potential, can't do that, and already America is in its maximum capacity in its maximum capacity. So let us just continue on to that later. But for now, if we make the same mistake that the Chinese Communist Party or the government of China, the government of China and the CCP are different. Why? Because yeah, as Chris Chappell, the host of China Uncensored, puts it, the Chinese government is obliged to follow the orders of Chinese Communist Party, which sits up on it. Yeah, up on it. So the only thing you have to know is that the Chinese Communist Party wants, will, and must have to remain in power to make sure that the economic growth goes on. And if the economic growth stops, then it is obliged. And in any other way, it is just powerless with the economic growth stops. Why? Because the dissent in people will increase, and the Chinese Communist government will fall as in the same way as the Soviet Union had fallen. So for you have to know what is this, and you have to know what happens then. Because you have seen Russia, and China had also seen Russia, so it just doesn't want to become another Soviet Union, to be collapsed and to divide in different countries like Tibet, Mongolia, and a bunch of others. So let me just keep that aside again. I already explained in these 3 minutes of my episode two things. First thing is that China biggest competitor is India, and China doesn't want to fall by its economic collapse as in the same way as the Soviet Union had fallen. So now for these two causes, the biggest obstacle is India, and so immediately and almost as it is a reflex, China wants to hurt India to fulfill two reasons. First thing is that to make the Chinese citizen happy. Why? Because every country has one thing in common, whether it is authoritarian government or it is a democratic country, sovereignty, and also territorial disputes. Yeah, India and China are one of the world's most controversial countries. Why? Because India has problems with Pakistan and China, Bangladesh, Nepal, and with Sri Lanka on ocean or sea conclaves. And China has with almost every other country it borders: Russia, Kazakhstan, Turkestan, North Korea, a bunch of other countries. So, China does want to just please the Chinese citizens by using this word sovereignty. And how? By rising territorial disputes. So that's the only thing. That is why they're coming into the Indian border and hurting us. And so you're now seeing three reasons. And the first thing and the third one are linked to each other. You can see that very clearly. So yeah, why? Because the economic slowdown is going on because of the coronavirus pandemic in China, and most of the companies are moving out of China and they're going to India. India can develop in the coming years, whereas China will become another Soviet Union. So, it is very much unfortunate that the skirmishes are going or are turning into a series of armed conflicts, which is not good for India. So, you may well now understand that China just wants India to be more unstable. And that is why it is raking with Pakistan, it is raking with Sri Lanka. The Sri Lanka's post minister, Aka now, the transport minister, is blaming about this World Cup issue just to make India more unstable. Why? Because, Sri Lanka is under the hands of China. The port which Sri Lanka had handed over to China because it can't pay the debts. And, the only strategy that our very own China can play, the debt strategy. The same thing which is playing with Pakistan, an arch rival of India. So this episode is completely not in a view of India, right? Because I even condemned India for some things. And this is a neutral view of things. Why? Because I want to make sure that I am not any other Indian man or Indian boy saying about these things. So the only thing I just want to know is that whatever it is, we have to make sure of. So for now, there is a lot of problems going on here. So, first thing is that China wants to propulse India. And also, in the other side of China, mainland China, there's another conflict going on in the Korean Peninsula. North Korea is threatening war with South Korea. And, China is easy to be assessed. But North Korea, with more of investigation and analysis, can be known. Most people just scratch their heads over there. But, for my knowledge of North Korean leader and how do other Korean governments work, the only thing I can say is that coronavirus is raising North Korea, or there is some other internal conflict going on in North Korea, just to divert the people from the conflict or the disease, or to make people, as I already mentioned earlier, every country wants sovereignty, every country fights for sovereignty. So they just keeping these two things in mind. One thing, they may be unstable from the inside. And second one, the people may be angry, or they want to create a diversion in people. For these two things, they are keeping a conflict with South Korea. So now, Asia's largest democracies, two largest democracies, so yeah, including Japan, there are three largest democracies in Asia, which are India, Japan and South Korea. Why? Because Pakistan, I don't consider it as a democracy. It is more of a military democracy where leaders are playthings for the military of Pakistan. So let us keep that aside and now let us move on. So now, two of the most successful authoritarian regimes in the world, namely China and North Korea, communist authoritarian regimes, which is a very funny way of saying brutalism, but still, are now in crisis because of coronavirus and internal instability because of that. And so they just want to keep the government safe. So they are keeping the people in stake by declaring wars and skirmishes. So, yeah, you may know well now why we must have to not opt anti-China. Why? Because, yeah, playing anti-China would make us going in the lines of this Communist Party of China, or the CCP, the Chinese Communist Party. So you may be thinking, so what is the difference between pro-India and anti-China? Pro-India means that be calm, keep pressure on government on one thing, make China diplomatically vulnerable. By using our democracy, we have that advantage, as I already mentioned earlier, and also we have the second advantage of having good relations with the two most superful power, soft power. And we have the demography first, and the second thing is that we have a special place in Asia. So, yeah, now we can even recognize Taiwan becoming the first sovereign nation with population more than 10 million to recognize Taiwan. So, it will be a good backlash against China regime. So we can keep pressure on government, asking them to recognize Taiwan as a sovereign nation, and so we can make sure that everything is going well, and also we can give China a piece of our mind, and at the same time we can keep China at the bay, and also we can give a good answer for the losses where we have been gotten, and at the same time we can save ourselves from an economic collapse, and also we can be more stable. Why? Because coronavirus is already harnessing our vulnerability. It is making us more vulnerable than ever. So the only thing you have to know is that fight for a country, not against other country, which is barbaric way of doing anything. So that's it for everyone who is protesting out there against China. The only thing I want to say is that, yeah, it is correct. It is also right to delete some Chinese apps. As my contribution, I deleted the Me community as well as the Me store, which came pre-installed. Yeah, which can be deleted, but I didn't care to delete. Why? Because they have their own profits of shopping. So now the thing I want to say is that remember what I said in this 11-minute long podcast and do what you think good. Anti-China will only make us more vulnerable. Why? Because first thing, we are totally dependent on Chinese goods. We have hard fear of them. So if anything dangerous broke out, our privacy and our integrity will be kept at risk. Why? Because we have a large force of Maoists and Chinese, Chinese, like the Naxalites are nothing but supporters of China. So we may be in a total chaos. So the only thing I want to say is that, yeah, the title, that's it. So is it becoming long? Though I made episodes of about 2 hours before, but now I can't make more than 12 to 15 minutes. After it may be more silent, I'll be continuing with a topic which I left way before. That is, yes, about Pakistan.